Hello friends, and welcome to another day of Vlogmas. I am going to be honest and tell you I don't know what day this is going up because I have been home with COVID, and so I'm a little bit behind, and I'm just trying to get some videos filmed on a day that I am feeling better, but before I'm returning to work, so I'm trying to use this day. If you see my nose getting progressively redder throughout the course of this video, it is because my nose is just running and I keep having to blow it. Let's go ahead and talk about this video, which is going to be all the series I'm in the middle of currently. This is going to include series that aren't complete, but I have a book to read before the next one comes out, or this is going to include completed series that I have not finished yet. So to start things off, we're going to talk about the biggest series I'm in the middle of, and we just need to talk about it. These are all of the books in the series that I currently own, but if you know, you know, there are so many more. So this is the Wheel of Time series, right? By Robert Jordan, and then later in the series, we also have Brandon Sanderson. These are not in order right now, so I can't tell what is what, but I know I have already read The Eye of the World, The Great Hunt, and I think it is, I'm trying to look at the pictures. I've read The Dragon Reborn. I am in the middle of The Shadow Rising, which I've been in the middle of for months, and it's just because other stuff has been like shiny and pretty and bright. I was ahead of my friend that I'm buddy reading this series with, and now he is on book 7 and I am still in the middle of book 4. So 2024, catching up on the Wheel of Time is definitely going to be a priority. I tend to read these in a very hybrid way. Audio, I have them on my Kindle, and then I also will pick up the actual book, especially if I'm getting confused because there are a lot of names in the Wheel of Time. If you don't know what this series is about, it is about our kind of core group of characters. We have Rand and Perrin and Nynaeve and Egwene, Moraine, and so many more people that we come into contact with, but those are kind of the core group that we start with, and it starts in a very Lord of the Rings classic fantasy style. Their town is attacked. They have to set out on a great adventure. There are 15 books in this series, and I own 5 of them, and I don't think I'm going to finish it in 2024, but I hope to get at least halfway through the ones I have not read yet. So maybe through book 8, book 9, something like that. So this is definitely an undertaking. I'm enjoying it for the most part. There are some parts that are slow. There are some parts that kind of make me mad just with the way Robert Jordan kind of talks about women. But overall, it's a very, very epic classic fantasy series, and I'm happy to be reading it. Next up, we have a series that I know I will be finishing before 2023 ends, and that is Throne of Glass. Obviously, there are so many more books, but these happen to be the 2 that I am in the middle of right now. I have fallen in love with this series, and a year ago, I was a Throne of Glass hater, y'all. The first book kind of grated on my nerves. I felt like it was pretty juvenile in its execution of the writing, but things get so much better, especially once you hit book 3. Book 4 was life-changing. Books 5 and 6 are doing things to my heart, and I think the last book is going to destroy me and reshape me as a person. That's how much these books are affecting my life, and I did not think I would ever say that about these books. I've got coworkers reading these books now. I've got friends on Bookstagram who are either rereading them or reading them for the first time, and I'm having such good discussions with y'all about them. This book series has turned into something so different by this point, but we start in the first book by following our heroine, Selena Sardathian, who is pretty much famed as the world's greatest assassin, but she has been captured and is working in these mines. The king is having a contest to find basically his victor, who is then going to be kind of a royally sanctioned assassin for him to perform like things that he needs taken care of. You know what I mean? So she enters this competition. We meet lots of other characters, some that turn into pretty prominent side characters, some that turn into main characters that we get points of view from, and it turns into an epic fantasy full of magic and adventure and romance and fighting and dragons and witches. And I know this sounds extreme, but this series is reshaping me as a person. Next up, another series I am in the middle of is the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. The only one I've read in the series is Red Rising. Then we have Golden Sun, and then I don't own it yet, but we have Morning Star, which is the conclusion of the first trilogy, and then there is a second series that has come out after the fact. I don't really know how they tie together. This is a science fiction series. You can tell there's a lot of Roman themes pulled into this book, just in the way society works and the way some of the competitions. I mean, even look at that. That is a crown of laurels, very Roman. This book is about Darrow, who was the bottom caste of society as a red. He was working underground on Mars, basically being told that what he was doing was very important but very dangerous, and one day people might be able to live on Mars if he does his job well. Surprise, people are already living on Mars and they're just continuing to treat the Reds very, very poorly, and the Reds don't know this. Darrow's wife really wants to stand up against society and work for something better for her family, but Darrow is very much a pacifist and is like, but we're happy together. I can keep doing what I'm doing. It's okay. Something traumatic happens very early on in this book that changes Darrow's mindset. He begins working to become a gold, which is the highest member of society. In order to become a gold, he has to drastically change physically, mentally, emotionally. He has to go through this school, and I hate even calling it a school because it is very much just like a very Hunger Games-esque competition. It's kind of like an orchestrated war by the people in charge to see how these people perform under the pressure of battle and war, and it is very brutal and very extreme, and it breaks your heart. We're introduced to a lot of cool characters in this book, and the way this book ended makes me really excited to pick up book 2. And book 2 and book 1 are both free if you have an Audible membership, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one soon. Another book series that I am in the middle of is by, I don't know if he's my favorite author of all time, but he is in my top 3 favorite authors of all time, and that is Frederick Bachmann. So I have read the first book in the Toown trilogy, which is called Toown. I have not yet read Us Against You or The Winners. So this is the second, this is the third. And I'm very excited to get to this series. However, this series deals with very, very heavy, emotional, hard topics. And so I definitely have to be in the correct mindset to read these books. The first book focuses around this town that has a hockey team full of high school aged boys, but this is what their town is known for. This is what their town loves, and they are all in it for the boys on this hockey team. Something happens between one of the boys and one of the girls that live in the town that has people taking sides and questioning what is right and what is wrong, and if covering up the sins of a boy who could potentially bring the team to victory are worth it, or if bringing attention to what happened to the girl is more worth it. And the town definitely takes sides. You can see the emotional stakes one action made by one boy takes on an entire group of people. I would definitely look up trigger warnings for what goes on in Town, but it sets up what's going to happen in the rest of the book, Us Against You and The Winners. I just have to humble brag on my best friend who knows that I love Frederick Bachmann so much. He got me Us Against You last year for Christmas. And then for my birthday this year, he got me The Winners, and it is signed. And like I said, Frederick Bachmann is one of my favorite authors of all time. Something about his writing just really resonates with me and makes me feel like a human being that can connect with other people. And he writes in a way that's like, oh my gosh, somebody else understands the way my brain works. Anxious People, I think, is my favorite book of all time. This series is very good, and I think this is going to be like a February read for me, at least the second one, because these books feel cold, and I need to read it at a time when Mississippi feels cold, and we don't really get there until the end of January, February, and then it lasts like 3 weeks. But we got the Town series, another series that I am almost done with all of the books that are currently released, and I only have one book to hold up because I didn't feel like digging on my bookshelf, but that is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This book has 4 books out right now. It starts with The Thursday Murder Club, which is the one with the red cover. Then we have The Man Who Died Twice, this one. We have the third one, The Bullet That Missed. And then we have the fourth one with the purple cover called The Last Devil to Die. I have not gotten my hands on the fourth one yet, and I really meant to get it the month it came out in September, but book releases and life have just gotten in the way. I'm really, really enjoying this series, and I'm very excited to continue. This follows a group of septuagenarians and octogenarians that live in a retirement village in England. It is so picturesque, and you can just imagine, I think there's either llamas or alpacas that graze in the middle of the yard, but the sheep and the countryside and going into London on the bus, and it's just so sweet and wholesome, except that there's murder. So we have 4 core members of the Thursday Murder Club, and they meet every Thursday to kind of discuss cold cases, and they're happy to do this until one day they realize that like there's actually a murder to be investigated, and they take matters into their own hands, much to the chagrin of the local police station. And even though the police station is kind of like, these people need to get out of our business and mind their own business, they end up becoming really close friends and working together. This series is funny, it's heartwarming, and it's heartbreaking all at once. You really feel like you get to know the 4 core members of this group. And it's also just an examination of what it's like to age. And sometimes that's really beautiful, and sometimes that's really sad. Continuing on in series that I have not yet completed, we have got the War of Lost Hearts trilogy by Carissa Broadman. I read the first book last March or April, and I loved this book. I know a lot of people like Serpent and the Wings of Night better, the Crowns of Nyaxia series, but I still feel like I loved this book more than I liked that duology, and I love that duology, but this one just spoke to my heart. The romance in this book is so sweet. It's between like a very driven girl and a very curmudgeon-y hermit-esque type guy, but it's so much more than that. It is a revenge story. It is a coming into our own power story. It's kind of horrific, some of the magic that occurs in these books. And I'd also check trigger warnings for this trilogy, but I've only read the first book in the series so far. I definitely need to go and read a recap before I get to the second one, which is Children of Fallen Gods. And of course, once I read this one, I'm going to want to order the third one, which is Mother of Death and Dawn. They're also all available on Kindle Unlimited. So while I love these big covers, I just found some stickers. I love these big books, but they don't flop very well. And I guess it's just the self-publishing, but they're very, very heavy. And I don't know if y'all can tell, I got real little wrists that hurt when they hold up big books. So while I own these, I do tend to read them on Kindle Unlimited just because it's easier. So this series is very, very good. And I'm very excited to continue on in this series in 2024. All right, y'all knew this one was coming. I am in the middle of Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. So I've only read the first book so far. I've got the second one on Audible ready to go, and I think I'm going to listen to it in January, obviously, because book 3 comes out at the end of January, and I will be reading it in February. So I don't even know that I need to explain what this series is about. I'll do a very vague synopsis. We are following our main character, Bryce, who lives in a city, and it's been a long time since I've read this, so some of the details, even the name of the city, are kind of fuzzy in my brain, but I remember the gist of it. So Bryce lives in this city. It's very modern, like the people go to dance classes and have cell phones, but it's full of magical creatures. So we've got like nymphs and fairies and all sorts of different magical creatures. They just live in a much more urban environment than what we've seen Sarah J. Maas write before. Something happens at the beginning of this series that sets Bryce off to investigate a whole bunch of stuff, along with the help of, I guess he's kind of a fallen archangel named Hunt. Again, I'm kind of fuzzy on some of the details. There's definitely romance, but I wouldn't say that it is purely romantasy. There is a lot of heavy plot that goes on in this book. Unfortunately, I have been spoiled for the end of book 2, and I think that's why I have put it off for so long, but it's definitely time to read it, since I'm not going to let anybody spoil book 3 for me, and I'm going to read it the second I get my hands on it. But I'm very excited to continue on in this series. These are chunky books, but I had a great time reading book 1, and I'm excited to continue. The last series I wanted to talk about today kind of breaks the rule that I said at the beginning of the video, in that these are either completed series or I haven't read everything that's out yet, and that is the Divine Rivals duology. And I'm only including this because the next one, the last one, comes out at the end of this month. I'll be getting my hands on it and reading it soon, and that is Ruthless Vow. Obviously, I've read the first one, loved it, 5-star read, one of my favorites of the year. I haven't sat down to actually rank my favorites of the year yet, so I'm not sure where anything is going to fall on that list, but I'm pretty certain this one is going to be in my top 5. The way that this book ended how could I not be excited for book 2? This book follows our main character, Iris, who is a journalist working in a town amidst a war between the gods. Her brother has gone off to fight, and a lot of really just sad things happen to Iris and her family, and so she is surviving the only way that she knows how, which is working at this newspaper. She's very sad and going through a lot, so she ends up writing letters to her brother that she hasn't heard from in a really long time and sending them through a magic wardrobe that she doesn't really understand, in the hopes that he'll maybe one day see these letters, but she really doesn't have any hope that he will. To her surprise, somebody starts writing her back. It's not her brother, but she doesn't know who it is. Well, let's return back to that publishing, journalism, newspaper thing that she works for. She's got a rival in the workplace, and his name is Roman Kit. And it turns out that Roman is the one actually writing the letters back. Now, I'm not spoiling anything, that's all found in the synopsis, but we get this kind of You've Got Mail situation amidst a fantasy world that feels kind of like World War II, war between the gods, and Iris kind of sets out on a little bit of an adventure to make a better life for herself and also to help with the war efforts, and a beautiful romance develops. It is so sweet. It is so wholesome. It's not the spicy romance that we get in some of these other fantasies. It is just so sweet and pure, and what I feel is a very good depiction of love during war, when you're not actually like a soldier in the war. You're just in war times. It's a very good wartime book without being a war book. Does that make sense? The way that book 1 ended, like December 26th can't come soon enough, and I don't want to rush the holiday season. Oh, I need book 2. But that is all of the book series that I am currently in the middle of. I know for some people that seems like a lot of series, and for some people that seems like nothing compared to all of the series that some people are in the middle of. Either way, I would really like to cut down on the number of series that I'm currently reading so that I can start new series, because isn't that the way reading works? We finish one thing so we can start another. But I would like to not get bogged down by so many series that I feel like I'm never finishing them. And Wheel of Time, I'm looking at you. I'm looking so hard at Wheel of Time right now. If you watched all the way to the end of this series, why don't you leave me a book or a book stack to represent all of these series, and let me know either what your favorite series that you have ever read is, or the series that you're in the middle of that you're the most excited about finishing. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next Vlogmas video. Bye guys.